do have email, however, so I do email. I can understand email. All right, so this tutorial is really simple as well. We're going to send email from your app, which is part one. I said we were going to go on to the audio one next, but I still have an audio and video one, which is just as good. Again, this is the series of tutorials that's going to be working with the frameworks. So audio works with frameworks, mail, Twitter, all that stuff is working with these frameworks. And the framework applications are cinch. They're extremely easy to write. So I said before last week we were going to add the friends. You can do this actually because we have the method created for when you touch on a friend, when you select the friend. So put this code that we're going to write in the friend touch event that occurs. In fact, if we want to see that, if you don't know what I'm talking about here, let me just take a side tangent. Open up the last of the dreaded, I don't even want to touch this tutorial seriously, but part 5, we're not going there, don't worry about it. I just want to show you where to put the code. In the part 5 solution, I thought I had it downloaded, but it's just easier for me to re-download it here. In part 5 of our lovely friends, we have, where did I stick it? Oh, there it is. Although part 5 is creating, I don't know if I have this installed. Let's just see. I'm going to show you the method to where to put it. Of course okay, no, so it's the right one at least. Adding view. Nope, it's going to be in our friends controller. Our friends display adding view controller. View did load. Hold on one second. We have the number of selections in view. We have an empty method on the bottom here. Did select row at index. So in this method here that's empty on the bottom, you can add the code to load up and send an email message to the friend that you've collected. So I'll let you figure that out. Same thing, you can actually put the code in here to tweet if you wanted to tweet, but I don't know, that's different because you're selecting a friend from the list. But this is the method here, the template's already given to you, but it's empty because part 5 is supposed to add it in, but I couldn't, it's part 6 or 7 and does something with it. So, but I'm done with the friends. But this is where you would add it. The method implication is already there. But so let's just see how it works from a simpler perspective without having to go back to that tutorial. And so we're looking at the first one's called send mail one. There's 2 parts of it. One sends an email message, the other one sends an email message with a file attachment. So it's 2 versions of the same program essentially. One is just a continuation, so we can probably do them both actually and have enough time. So open up another plain old application. So close Twitter down, open up and create a blank application. And if you were going to do this, and this one's going to be called send, I'm just going to call this one send me mail because I already have a send mail on my desktop. Don't use the storyboard, use automatic reference counting. Go ahead and press on next and then save it to the desktop. This one's actually kind of cool because it will actually send email. It does send. So just the same way as the Twitter works too, so it's actually kind of cool. Alright, so, oops, this isn't the one I want. I want this one. Here we go. Okay, so I'll call it send mail. The first thing we're going to do, this is kind of the pattern I like to take. I like to add the frameworks first because then I don't forget the frameworks. So this is going to be the message UI, which is going to work with the default email program on the phone. And there's one on the simulator, so this will actually, I don't know if it will send out on the simulator though. I think you actually have to load it on a real device for it to work. But the first thing you're going to have to do is add the message UI framework. So same thing we did before, we're going to go to the build phases and we're going to link the library, link the binary with library. So build phases, link binary with libraries, open that up, and I should have clicked here, but let's see what happens here. Press the little plus symbol, and this one's going to be message UI. And so I see message UI framework. So go ahead and press add. And I see it still came up on the top over here. Okay. I'm going to stick it in here instead. So I just like it all in one spot. You don't have to stick it. If it's causing you problems to move it around, look at that. It did. See, mine actually turned red. So that's interesting. The Twitter didn't do it though. So I'll remove it from here and I'll just add it again. So add message UI. No, it fixed it. It doesn't like it when you move it, I guess, sometimes. So it didn't do it for my Twitter one, but it did that for my message. So it doesn't really matter where it's in, though, but a lot of people like to, including myself, like to keep it organized. So I see message UI in here, so we're good. Okay, so I believe we're going to build the user interface next. So here's the little pictures that show you how to put it in. You're going to select message UI. It's the only one that comes up when you type in message. The finished product looks like this. So let's go ahead and create this email looking message. So we have a subject, and we have a message that we're going to put in here, and then a send button, which is going to do the same thing our Twitter thing did. But instead of opening up the email client, we're going to send a modal image up to the top, modal window that's going to load on top of our current window. That's just going to do the functionality for us and allow us to send the email. So I'm going to, actually it loads up a blank email message is what it does. You can change all this stuff around if you want. So to subject and message, I guess you could make the message into, instead of a text box field, you can make it into a text area if you wanted to make it bigger. I'm just going to use the default kind of thing right now though. So to, from, and message. So I'm clicking on the XIB file, and let me create my message sending machine here. Change the background color. Let's see. I think I'm going to go blue today. I'm going blue and purple today. So it's, I have to make things different. You know. Alright, this is going to be my send button. I'm starting from the bottom of the screen, working up. So send. Let's see, got a label here. It's going to be to, from, message. So I like that door. Who knew? Could add so much to the environment. Let's see. Except for that noise. It's a little bit loud when people are in there. So. But I like, yeah, are you guys freezing to death? I like the added ventilation it gives me. Yeah, I like it. Yeah. Otherwise it gets stuffy in here. I don't think the air is such a good idea. Stuffiness. Alright, hopefully you're getting close to finishing your message UI. We're going to wire the components next if you are done. I could stick my ball out here, I guess. My Twitter, tweet guy. You do have to be careful though with the images that you're downloading. Occasionally, well, if you try to put this in the Apple Store and you're using somebody's image that doesn't belong to you, you'll get a nasty message that comes back from the Apple folks. It's worse than the message you get from YouTube. It's a copyright violation and a threatening note about reporting you to the legal owner of the material that you're stealing so they can prosecute you criminally. It's not a pleasant message. Okay. Not that I haven't tried it before, by the way. I don't know. I just heard about it. I just heard. I don't know where I heard it from. I just heard about it. Not such a good thing to do. Actually, you do that to YouTube. One time I had music notes in there. You do it to YouTube, and they threaten to close your account immediately. They're serious about copyright infringement. Thank you. Alright, so once you've got this all created, we're going to do the same thing we did with the Twitter. But this time we're going to add the message UI to the Viewcontroller.h file. We could have added Twitter to the Viewcontroller.h file as well. Technically, it probably should go in the .h of the Viewcontroller. But we're going to use these components here, and we're going to add the delegate. So it's a slightly different implementation than the Twitter. So we're going to add the delegate to the Viewcontroller.h, which is why we're putting this header file in the Viewcontroller.h. In the Twitter, we didn't do anything in the .h of Viewcontroller, which is why we put it in the .m. Technically, though, either way works. So Okay, so first we need to import the message UI and then cast a class by adding the header file. So go ahead and open up viewcontroller.h. I like to put the header files in before I wire the buttons and stuff, just so I don't forget. Because a tendency is to forget to actually import the stuff. So putting it in. Now I'm going to actually change I believe I'm going to change my delegate here, but let's take a look at the instructions so I make sure I follow it correctly. We also need to add the MF-Mail Compose View Controller Delegate protocol. We're implementing a protocol. You guys remember that, I hope, from the protocol lessons. So the interface here, we're just going to add the use of one protocol. If we have multiples, we know we separate them by commas inside of here. Another question you'll probably find on the final exam. What is a how do you use a protocol? But people have been asking me, which is why I'm volunteering this information. I'm in the process of writing the final exam, and people keep asking me, what kind of exams? It's going to be multiple choice, but the questions are going to be based on what we've been doing. So using protocols, using categories. Well, we actually haven't used categories in this class, but protocols we've used. Okay, what's wrong with this? We're going to word wrap funny is what the problem is here. So let me do this instead. There we go. That's what I wanted my protocol to look like. So if I gave you a multiple choice test and we're using the MF-Mail Composer View Controller Delegate, and then I have this syntax here, and I have three of these suckers here, A, B, and C. One of them uses quotation marks, the other one uses, let's say, this symbol, and the other one's going to use something else, or maybe a comma, or maybe there'll be two of them, and they'll be like this here, instead of comma inside. Because we know that other example, we did this, comma. Everything that's inside of the opening and closing caret, side caret, what do you call that thing, is for the protocols that we're using. Okay. All right. Oops. Let's go back to the. I'll give you an entire review before that exam, so you know what it is you're going to be doing. So now you need to wire the buttons to the three text fields as follows. So we have a to, a from, and a message. So go ahead and create properties for to, from, to, subject, and message. To, subject, and message. Okay, so we don't need a from. To, subject, and message. So I'm going back to here. I'm going to click back over here. The questionings, however, will be on generic stuff, not like stuff that would be particular to any API or anything like that. Just so you know, not to scare people. What kind of question? It is 40% of your grade, by the way. Yeah. Huh? I already scared you? All right. I'm just, okay. All right, so these are properties. So go ahead and control, drag them. This one is 2. Let's see, if I use the same wording when I cut and paste, I don't have to change anything. So nothing is nothing is capitalized. It's just to subject and message. To subject message. 2 subject. I'm not very intimidating. How could you be scared? Message. People. Message. There we go. I can make it worse. I could actually have you write code. Multiple choice is easy.
I told you,
huh?
I told you.
What?
The scaling is.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll just stop talking. All right. I was really trying to do this tutorial. Okay, so we got the send button. So wire the IB action to send for the button. So let's do the send button, and then we're gonna do the. Let's do a generic because we want to do a resign first responder for all the text boxes. So let's just do a generic finished or done method for that. And then wire all of the text boxes to that one method. So I'm going kind of fast because you guys should, we've done this for a couple weeks straight. So this should be like, hopefully coming more naturally to you now. So I have accelerated the pace a little bit. On purpose. Let's see. Touch up inside is a good one. And this one is going to be what? Send? Send. There we go. And then let's do the, that's the other thing that changed also with the 5 and above. We don't actually have to, actually 6 and above. You don't have to change the return type on these. All you have to do, let me show you what that's talking about. Over here, for the basic resigning of the first responder, you don't actually have to change the return type anymore. Before you had to change it to done. Now the default is done. Which was kind of tricky because a lot of the tutorials I still have say done on them because they're old. But you notice the last one we did today, we didn't do done. We didn't change the return type. What does that mean? It means that the exit here, this event, so what you want to do is take the first text box, wire the did end on exit events, wire it down here to done or finished or something. I'm going to call it done. In the old days, you actually had to send done as the return type. Don't have to do it anymore. Doesn't matter if you do it or not do it, you still get the same behavior. So, which is kind of interesting. That's the problem, you know, that keeps changing stuff. So now you know on the second box here, we're going to wire it all to the same method just by clicking on here and dragging it over and then highlighting the method. So wire all of the did end on exit events through your 3 buttons to resign the first responder to this done events here by wiring the did end on exit over here. And if we're going to do this, then we're going to put sender in there because sender is this component. So we'll resign the first responder on the sender. And I would hope that you guys would know what resigning the first responder meant. It could be. Actually, it would be interesting to see how many people missed it. So in my done event, I'm going to put in an opening bracket. And I'm going to go sender because I'm responding to sender, sending the message to sender, and then the method I'm sending to it is resign first responder. I would hope that you guys would know that one. How many times have we done that? So anyway. I'll tell you exactly what's going to be on that exam as we get a little bit closer. We still have about 3 more weeks left. So if we resign the first responder, it means that the keyboard goes away for those people who aren't with the program yet. And we've basically have tied all 3 text boxes to the same method so that behavior will occur. Actually, you can take multiple events and tie it to the same IB action by doing what we just did. So it makes sense for the like kinds to be wired together. So you can do that with a tic-tac-toe game, which is what we did, the calculator, which is what we did with all the operators and all the numbers. So, alright, so now I believe I am ready to move on to the next step. And the next step is going to be to, well, we did that, did end on exit event. So, and we put the code in already, but I didn't synthesize. So I want to synthesize now. In Viewcontroller.m, I'm going to synthesize the subject and the message because I'm going to use these guys, which is that other thing that changed. So now you don't have to synthesize, you just use the underscore. So, but I'm still a synthesizer, so I'll synthesize it. So at the top of the message up here, I'm just going to put it under here and just paste it. So now I have synthesized. If you've labeled your property something else, you're going to synthesize to the labels that you gave it. So you have the correct things in here. Implement the resign first responder. We just did that actually, so we don't have to do that. But let's add the send method implementation. So all the work is done by the MF Mail Composer View Controller. So we have a special view controller that we're going to implement with this protocol that we added to ours. So first we need to check to see if the phone can send mail. So if we can create an instance of the MF Mail Composer View Controller and use it to set the subject and the body and the recipient of the mail message, and then set the recipient's takes an array as an argument, and we need to put our to text into the array. So after setting up the mail, we present the email. We'll present the Modal view controller, which is the same view controller we used before. So the Modal view controller is that window. It's a modal view. If you've worked with the storyboards at all, and I believe next week we have storyboard projects galore. Today's all about frameworks and stuff, but and I think I have some more framework stuff left too, but I can't remember. But anyway, long story short, it's a modal view controller. So in the storyboard we can actually modal. We can push, modal, or control, depending upon the option that we select for the relationship between the different views that are in the storyboard. This we're just going to use a modal by default because that's what we're going to get with this framework. It's one of the, by using this method that we're going to use, it's going to implement that for us. So this is what the send button looks like. This is the meat of the operations. And a slug inside the send method because we want to make sure we made it this far. If you made it this far, it means your button's working. If your email system's not working and your phone's not set up for email, your app's not going to work. You're not going to be able to tell if you've even made it into the method. Believe it or not, though, I think even on the simulator we should get an email message. It may not send the message, but we'll definitely get a default email to show up. If the composer can send mail, if we can send mail, we're good. Then set the send to address. So n is mutable array for the recipients. We can send it to multiple people. We have an array that's coming through. We're going to send it to only one person because we have a text field that we put one email address into. We could put commas in there, send an array of items, or we could put separate boxes in there if you wanted to. Send it to 2 people, 3 people, 4 people. It's all in an array, but we only have item number 1. So in it with capacity 1. We're only going to send to one person. So this is, well, for you guys who are just scared here, that's an allocation of the object. We know alloc and init. You want to know those concepts. So MS mutable array alloc. This is an initializer. We're initializing it with capacity 1 instead of just saying init. Recipients, add object. What are we going to add? The 2.text. So get the text from the 2 field. This is the name what we called our field. If you called your text field something else, name that something else. So you have to change that name. Here's the meat of the operation. MF Mail Composer View Controller. That's the object. We're creating another one called controller. So this is the name of the object that we're creating. We know that all objects we create have this asterisk next to it. It's the pointer. So that's another testable kind of thing. Equals MF Mail Controller View Controller alloc init. So we're allocating it, initializing the view controller. It's the Mail Compose View Controller that we're following the protocol for. Controller.mailCompose delegate equals self. It is a controller, so there's a delegate and the delegate self, which means we're controlling the delegate. We're controlling the controller for the mail. We're going to get that modal window that shows up with us, which means that control, when we're done with the window, we go back to our app. Actually, we don't leave our app. We'll do it from within our app. So now we're talking to the controller again. We're going to set the controller to set the subject to subject.text, set the message body to message.text. Is HTML? No. We're going to send the message in plain text. We could send it in HTML text if we wanted to by changing that to a yes. But we're just going to send plain old text to the view controller, to the modal view. Excuse me. Controller set to recipients. The recipients is the 2. So we have up here, this is the array we created with just one element in it. It is an array, however, so it will only create it with, in this particular case, it's only creating it with capacity 1, so which is going to be our 0 element. So you can easily modify this so it creates it to everybody. So self-present modal view controller, which means open up the view controller, the modal view controller inside of ourselves, put it in front of the screen that we're currently on. Animate it, yes. The animation, you can play around with that. I think it just brings it up this way instead of just flashing it. So it kind of brings it in, brings it out kind of thing. That's not too much animation, but depending upon the version of the phone, the animation actually kind of changes. So it's just animation on or animation off. It's your choices. Else, something went wrong. The device is not set up for email, so send an alert out. Alert's going to be a little pop-up message that's going to show up to the screen. It's going to say your device isn't working, and we'll a cancel button. And then this is a standard old alert box, and then alert.show. show the alerts. So let's take a look here. I'm just going to cut and paste the body here and let's see if I have any luck here. This is my send message method. Oops, I don't want that last one. I'm going to get it anyway. Just get it. So I'm going over to Viewcontroller. This is the method here. I'm going to have an extra bracket at the end, I can see. So let's just paste this in and see what happens. Get rid of this guy. This guy. Oh, good. I had some luck here. And I'm probably going to get some depreciation from 6.0. Let's see. From 6.0. So, changes faster than, oh, unused variable alerts. Let's take a look here. Unused variable, and it's possible unused variable. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Let's go take a look at this way. Oops. Is there a typo? There is a typo because it's not inside. Yeah. No, it needs to be up this way. Yeah, so let me get rid of this guy. Just put it up. There we go. There we go. It's because it was out of the scope, which is why it was unused. So that's good. Perfect, thank you. It was a cut and paste thing again. So why it gets rid of stuff like that, I don't know. But don't worry about the depreciated libraries unless you're really concerned about it. Move your thing down to 6.0 instead of 6.1. It just means they upgraded it, which means there's a slightly different method call for the method itself. So, however, the code will work just fine as is. Okay, so in order to get rid of the email view after we send it, we're going to need to implement the mail composer controller did finish with result, and then send in any type of error that may have occurred by the results. So we're going to implement this method. Again, it's overriding the behavior. So in the method, we can handle it if the user selected to cancel sending the message, decide to delete or save the message. So we don't do anything, but we'll send an alert if the event of the email failed after the user tried to send it. So we'll catch for the failing, but we're not going to catch for anything else. So here you're going to add the following method because we're overriding mail composer controller did finish with results and then send back the results and catch an NS error. This is interesting. This is a typecast for error as a variable to NS error as the type. So again, it's another one of those funny objects that we get automatically. Pretty simple. It's going to catch the result that comes back. And the result's going to be either one of these conditions: canceled, saved, sent, failed. So one of these things. We're not going to catch anything, except for this one down here on the default. If the email failed upon an error, we're going to send back a cancel, a little alert to tell the user that the email failed. I don't think mine's going to fail in the emulator, actually, because the emulator's not set up for email on mine, so let's see what happens. So I'm going to copy, oops. I thought I had selected the whole thing. So copy and paste the new method, add it to viewcontroller.m. We have the viewcontroller.m. I'm going to put it right here on the bottom. Doesn't matter where you put it. And of course I'm going to have cut and paste errors. Let's see. What kind of cut and paste errors am I getting? There's a space here. Oh, I have spaces this time. Nope, that's it. Oh, do I have spaces down here? Outside of a bracket, maybe? Yes, it is definitely outside of a bracket. Yeah, maybe a depreciation. Let's see. Dismiss modal view is depreciated, yes. Become first responder. Instead of resigning the first responder, become the first responder. It's the opposite of resigning the first responder. It means bring my screen back. Because you loaded me modal on top, so I got rid of you now. Bring me back. So, become the first responder. So let's see, I think I should be able to run it at this point, so I'm going to go ahead and run it. 2, let's see, just in case it does send it. I don't think it's going to send it. I actually don't have that one. I have I2. Let's see, from. No, actually, this was subject. I put from here. This is supposed to be the subject. This is the subject. My labels are wrong. Message. This is the message. Oh, there we go. So to Behacker I2, this is the subject, this is the message from, sent from my iPhone simulator. And then I have on the top here, this is the subject up here. I don't think this is going to work, but it's going to pretend like it did. I don't think it's going to send me a message. But it will from the phone, because I actually have email installed on my phone. So just like the Twitter, I don't think the Twitter sends, does the Twitter send from the emulator? Did it send? Because it's over the internet.
Yeah, because it's asking for the sign.
Yeah. Oh, it is sending it. It is sending it over the internet. But my mail, I don't think my mail's going to send actually, because I don't have a pop server. I don't have a server set up for that. But if I load it on the device itself, it will send, because I have the default email client set up. Because what it's doing is it's loading up whatever is your default email client. And so this is the modal screen. So if I go cancel and I send it back, it's going to say delete draft, save draft, or cancel. Well, let me say, wait a minute. Delete the draft. If I save the draft, it'll show up in the email program. So save draft, and then I'd have to find the email program on here, which I don't know if there's even an email program on here really, on the emulator.
We should get that alert, right? If it is not able to send it.
No, it is. It thinks it can send it because of the way the emulator is designed. If you load it on a phone, it will send it. The emulator is emulating. So if you go into settings, I believe you can probably set up, maybe I can set up the email. Actually, I don't think, I have to find it. Where is the email in settings? Isn't it down here? I don't see email on here. So I know you can use Twitter and Facebook through it. You can set up Twitter and Facebook accounts on it, but I don't know if it supports email, actually. It's the emulator limitation that doesn't support it, but the, which one is it? The message itself is bringing up emulation, so it will work on a regular phone, though. So you have to load it onto a device to have it work. So let's see, part 2 of this tutorial is extremely simple, so I can run through it right now. It's just sending in a file attachment. So we're going to make a modification, so leave the program up if you already have it working. If not, open up, if you want to follow along, open up the solution to this. What we're going to do now is kind of go through, make sure there's nothing else here. There isn't anything else here. Oh, so this is going to show you the screenshots if you can't see it on your own device. But, your iPhone simulator is not going to send mail. But it's going to pretend like it did. So, okay, so part 2 of this guy here, SendMail 2, is going to essentially be a really quick one here that just basically sends a file attachment, if I remember this correctly. So in part 2 of this tutorial, we're going to email from the iPhone. We're going to add an attachment, kind of the same thing we did with the Twitter, which is going to be a short tutorial, so it's very simple. Open up the SendMail app from part 1, or keep it open if you have it open, and we're going to add a method prototype now named attachment. We're going to create the attachment to send for the email. So go into Viewcontroller.h and add this this method prototype called attachment. There's nothing else we need to add. We're just going to create the attachment programmatically. So let's say you wrote an application and you wanted to have the user fill out a form, and then you wanted the form emailed. This is how you would do it. You know, like if the form was a document or a file or something that the user was sending from there, or a picture. Actually, you could send a picture this way as well. So click on the editor, and in Viewcontroller.h, I'm going to add this new method. So I'm going to put it right here. And I will paste it in. So it's a mutable string, because the string can change. And it's going to be called attachment. So let's see what's going on here. Method will create an NS mutable string of HTML code. Oh, that's what we're going to do with it. And then send it, so we're going to send an HTML attachment. So you need to implement this method here. So it's fairly easy since we're just going to create an NS mutable string. We're going to write some HTML code in it, and then we're going to return the string. Put the string in the method implementation inside of Viewcontroller.m. So this is our implementation of the method prototype we just added to the Viewcontroller.h. So it's NS mutable string HTML string. So we're going to call it HTML string, but it's an NS mutable string. And here's the mystery part of the whole thing. It's nothing. It's string with format, and then this looks like an HTML document. And then append the string, append the string, append the string, append the string, append the string. Why we do it this way? Because just an example to show you how to do it. So it's no biggie. And return the string. So all this method is doing is creating a string, and then we're going to change our method to send the message to send this as an attachment as well. So we're going to create this string. We could create the string with, you know, I don't know, information from the app or something, or information that we wanted to send. So why are we going to send an HTML? Because it's different. I don't know. Really no reason. Could send an image, same way we did in the Twitter thing if you wanted to. So I'm just going to put it at the top here, and I'm just pasting the implementation in here of that method. Really simple. So now step number 3, we're going to call the attachment method from our send method and then add the attachment to the email. So the method's going to create the attachment, and then we're going to add it to the email. The email controller expects the attachment to be a data type, data attachment. So we'll encode the NS mutable string as data and then attach it as data. We're just going to trick the controller because it expects a certain type. So we're going to set the type of the file as we have attached to the same as we want to give it. So add the code to the bottom of the same method that we used before that responds with the send button that we created. So what we're going to do is we're going to add to the bottom of this here. This is the last line that we're going to add underneath it. This is the self controller, present the controller, then add it down underneath. We're going to add get HTML string to use as an attachment. So we're going to create a string, HTML string, from self attachment. So the method is actually kind of interesting because it returns a string. And so we created a method that returns a string that when we call the method, we're going to get a string out of it. And we're going to make it equal to the HTML string, which is the same type, NS mutable string, which is nothing more than our string. So it's kind of an interesting way of calling a method that automatically generates a string for us. So maybe from, you know, information that's on the screen, maybe it's coming from the user, who knows where it's coming from. So encode the HTML string as data. So we're just going to change the data type to an NS data because it wants it as a data for the method call to work correctly. Reattach data. So HTML string data using encoding, and we're going to encode it with UTF, which is a string encoding, a string format. US NS. Can we hold it down in the back? You're bothering me. Yeah, you can take it in the hallway. Okay. I don't think I'm the only one that's being bothered by it either. So, all right, encode. It's hard to talk over it. Encode the HTML string as data. So we have a NS data, and we're going to data using encoding NS UTF-8. So this is a standard encoding string. It encodes it as text. It's just going to change the format so that the email client's not going to complain about it. It's still going to send it as HTML text. Text is text. Add the attachment. Here's the big old line of code that adds it. Controller add attachment data, which is why we had to convert it to data because it wanted it as data. Add the attachment data. And this data is a different data type, by the way. It's not string. It's a data. It's an data object type. MIME type text HTML, so we're sending it as text HTML, and give it the file name attached file.html. So it'll come through as an attached file. So the finish method looks like this. I'm going to see if I can just cut and paste this new piece down here on the bottom, and I'm going to cut and copy and paste it underneath the last line here. So let's take a look here if I figure out this implementation here. So I'm going to go down to the implementation of my send method is right here, and here's the line of code here before I get to the error checking and the alert. Ooh, it comes out. So right before I check to see if it got sent, I'm going to attach it. I'm sorry? After it? Or we want to add it before? I think we're going to add it after, but let me just make sure real quick here. Code to add. Add this code to the bottom of the send method just before the line that reads. I'm going to put it above it. Actually, we'll just go like this. Cut, because we don't want to send it before we get done with the attachments. Paste. There we go. We'll just put that on the map. Present the Modal Viewcontroller, because we want to do that last. Present the controller that's going to send the message last. Add the stuff to it before we present it. So, you're right. Thank you. All right, and I believe this is going to be that's my depreciated method. Okay, no problem. So now if I send it, it should send the file attachment that I've created. So let's see what happens. Crash, bang. No. One of these days I should build an app that says crash, bang when it comes up, crash, bang. Alright, so it's not going to send it anyway, does it really matter? I'll just put some stuff in here. Send. Look at that, I have a file attachment down here. And the file attachment says attached file.html, which is the name of the file I gave it. And it says HTML on it. It doesn't matter. Actually, I can type down here in the message too and change the message before I send it as well, if I wanted to. Oops, that's a lovely message. How do I get rid of the keyboard though? I can't get rid of the keyboard. Okay. And why is my send button not? Probably because I don't have a valid email. You know what? This should, if I actually had it, this should come back and say it's not a valid email. That's not a valid email address. If I change it to a valid email address, I believe the send button should be enabled. Now the send button's enabled. If I change the email address, yeah, it won't, oh no, it says to send. Let's see, let me try if I send it. Oh, invalid address. It does not appear to be a valid email address. Do you want to send it anyway? Sure, why not? It doesn't work anyway. So now we can successfully send email with file attachments. It's nothing more than using another framework, essentially. We have more frameworks, but I don't think I'm going to get through it tonight. It's already like 8:13. You have choices. We can extend a little bit longer, or we can save it for next week. Why is everyone saying save it for next week? Alright, let me end this video here.